Good morning, everyone. It's like a reunion. I get to see so many of you that I've had the pleasure of sharing spiritual community with over the many years that I've been in this region, this bioregion. And I have a scripture today that I want to link it to the vision mission statements that we just shared, statement of being. It's timely. So this particular scripture comes out of the Bible, and it comes out of the book of John. And what's interesting about this particular ancient writing and wisdom teaching, is that it really, when one looks at the whole chapter, one can see that there's a consistent message coming through. And it's basically what you see in the world is one thing, and what you see spiritually might be the opposite. So that what we know spiritually is for us to bring out and translate into the world. So that it's not the world dictating who we are, but rather our spiritual essence, our spiritual center, that is really shaping and forming what and who we are in the outer. And that's powerful, because when we have a mission, a vision statement that's really about transforming ourselves, our community, and our world, these are all great values for us to have and for us to work at, particularly at this time. Some are calling this very turbulent times. So for us to really hold that as a spiritual community, as a unity community, then for us to consistently be clear about the principles, which are like law, they're consistent, that will allow us to be that and do that as a vision. So this reading comes out of John 4, and I'll just do the little preface that goes with it. The disciples are interacting with Jesus, and again, he keeps referring to something that's so different than the literal. And they come to him and they say, "Rabbi, teacher, do you need some food?" And Jesus' response is, "I have food to eat of which you do not even know." Okay? So they're talking about the worldly food, and he's talking about something that's very abstract, invisible even, right? So the disciples said to one another, "Well, has anybody brought him any food?" So where are they? They're still thinking about this food thing in the outer world. We need to take care of our teacher. We need to take care of each other. And so Jesus' response to that is, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish this work. So don't you say that there are yet 4 months and then comes the harvest?" Like it's still winter, right, around here? I know it's sunny and it's really nice outside, and I know the trees right out here are blossoming. I mean, they're budding. I saw that as I sat in the parking lot. In my garden, there's little green onions coming up, those really great first green things that grow in my garden. I know it looks like spring outside, but we still call it winter. And so Jesus' words are kind of like that. It's like, wow, there's something else that's really true in this moment, even though it may seem like by a calendar, there's still many more months until there's a harvest. And so he says, "I tell you, lift up your eyes and see how the fields are already white for harvest." I just love this passage. I just feel like it's so potent for us, because there are so many times I get hooked, you probably do too, by the outer. Oh, we've only got so many more minutes to do whatever. We get real hooked by clocks. Or I only have so many years to be on this planet. We get real hooked by time. Or I only have so much money. We get real hooked by that. The bank account. Oh, we get really hooked by, some family member that always calls us whatever and says, "Oh, you're always that way." They judge us over and over again. We get hooked. So the outer is pressing on us always, but inside of us, there's also an inner, like a power, this force that is constantly working within us, that is conveying to us that we're so much more. And that's what I want to emphasize today, because it's our divine appointment on the planet to see things differently, right? Okay, I'm in the right place. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a long-time Unity minister. I know it's in my name, Kathy Long, but it's a little bit more than the name nowadays. And I teach full-time in a very unique school in Oxford, Michigan, Upland Hills School. And we sing this song on a regular basis, it seems like. All you need is love. And it's a great song to just bring us back to the core of who we are, isn't it? I just thank the Beatles for many of their songs. And this is one of the songs that just continues to persist in a culture that is beyond a country, right? There is this spiritual community that is beyond a culture, beyond a religion, beyond a people, but it's love. And it just keeps drawing us out and causing us to really think about seeing things differently, which is our message today, our chance to see things. Many times when I wake up in the morning, I do this check-in. It's almost like, what's relative today? In our unity movement and in what we call the Association for Global New Thought, this is the season for peace, the season for nonviolence. It's marked by the memorial anniversaries of Dr. Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. It's midwinter. There's climate change on the planet, in case you missed it. One of the things that's a part of a relative reality for me is watching Canada and watching it rise to the fact that we are experiencing the greatest migration of humans on the planet in history. And I want to appreciate all of you as Canadians for your consciousness. And I know that that consciousness is in process, like it's never a static, done thing. I know that it takes a constant renewal of one's courage and one's ability to be strong in a lot of unknown. And so as people in unity, and people committed and dedicated and willing to explore what it means to understand a unitive consciousness, then we could say the outpicturing of a unitive consciousness is when people open their homes, open their country for others to find some sense of safety and some sense of love to be able to make that life that we're on the planet to live, right? So the other thing that's true is that less than 10 miles away is a country by the United States of America that I was born into that's going through a lot of contractions with fear, okay? It's just the way I hold it, it's the way I label it. And in that, there's always this positive, meaning that there's like a big values clarification exercise. That's what we teachers talk about. But it's like this really big values clarification exercise. And that we as a country get the chance to really review our values and to figure out how we're going to live those values, right? So that's part of what I'm giving time and energy towards. The other thing that is really part of the now is that Reverend Rosalind, resigned from this ministry, and you're going through change here. Imagine that. Change is the great constant on the planet. I'm sorry, I don't want to trivialize what it means and what it feels like to feel the grief of seeing a spiritual leader move on, but it is a constant. And so we in unity circles now, I think, in our spiritual communities, are learning to be more nimble, more able to be flexible, more able to support each other. As we see many ministries just, again, less than 10 miles away, just right across the river, that are without full-time leadership, without spiritual leadership. So it's really interesting for me to see so many right in this general area that are going through this experience. And my husband Matthew, who says to say hello to those of you that remember him. I know he's led retreat over here. He's been a speaker over here. He's the other part of the long-time unity minister thing. And he and I are, over these last several years, supporting different unity ministries as they go through transition. So we're becoming more skilled in that. And I hope that my time with you is to encourage you and to know that the fields are white unto harvest. So that if you think that there is less spiritual experience because a spiritual leader is not here working for you full-time or on a part-time basis, please just let that go. Because the spiritual work is always happening, and therefore we want to always be ready for it and not let ourselves get too much in the way for the divine appointment of the work that is ours to do. So that this ministry, rather like my country and your country, has a great work to do, which is to bring the spiritual consciousness more into our daily living. And let's get on with it right here. Because next in my book it says, what is our role as unity people and students of truth? So if you're new today, then what I would say to you is that over 100 years ago, there was this amazing spiritual wave happening in the late 1800s. And it was happening in more than one country, but in this country, we saw it come over with the likes of Emerson and the Transcendental Movement. And when that occurred, there were new ideas, new thoughts happening about what it means to understand that which we call God. And in fact, science was happening, and Darwin was on the scene, and there was this big change of thought about who we are as humans even. And this concept of evolution was starting to really become rooted in the minds and the thinking of people. I would say that today, we now are encountering evolutionary collectives, people that are coming together. In the United States, I'm very aware of this because there's one on the East Coast, there's one on the West Coast, and there's one forming right in Detroit or Oxford, Michigan. Evolutionary collectives, people that are conceptualizing what it means to evolve spiritually, and that are owning that. That in fact, as unity for these 100-something years has not had a doctrine that one must believe to be a part of a spiritual community, we have been evolving our understanding of that which we call God for over 100 years. And that's inspiring to me, and that's what not only brought me to unity, but that's what has sustained my interest in unity all these years. In the latest copy of the Unity magazine, I like to read it in bed, so I don't have the digital version, but maybe you do. And there's an article, actually a reprint out of Marianne Williamson's book, Tears to Triumph, that was published in the year 2016. And she says, life is a learning process through which we are constantly challenged to love more deeply. The universe is intentional and will not be done with us until we've gotten to the place where love, and only love, is our reality. We're not on this earth just to hang around. Anybody here thought, man, once I get to retirement, I'm hanging out? No, that's not the assignment. That's not our assignment. We're not just here to hang around. We're here to actualize our enlightened potential, and the universe will make sure we do. So it's like our universal contract in a way. Okay, there's the work. I often say to people, my work is my relationship with God, and my jobs, like speaking here today, are an expression of that work. And to see that clearly, because it's easy to look out there and see that our job is our work. But to see things differently is to realize, no, jobs come and go. And no matter how hard we hold on to them and think, well, I am going to get this degree. Now, just to give you a little update, my son Elijah, the oldest one, is now just about to turn 23. He's at university. The youngest one is just finishing high school, so he's 18 now. And they already have this figured out, that there is not a job that they're going to have from the time they graduate till the time they are 70 or whatever time our country says that we can finally retire and receive Social Security and a little bit of health care. Thank you very much. Can you hear my attitude? Sorry. So the work is our relationship with that which we call God. And our jobs and our relationships are an expression, a pressing out of that work. So that's the work we want to be attentive to, okay? Our ministries are an expression of that work. Our ministries are an expression of that work. And that when I come over here, and this ministry has been great for years, to just really go and tune into that vision, that mission statement, that statement of being. And I remember when you were working on that, you've probably tweaked it even since those years. But that's the work. And then the ministry is an expression of that work, okay? Isn't it true about parenting also? That the work is what we do within ourselves so that we'll be ready to respond to our children. Is that right, Mike? Okay. They come along and they let us know you can't do life the way you thought you were doing life. There's a change here. And you start realizing, yep, I better do some things to really be put together on the inside, because there's going to be those middle of the night opportunities, there's going to be the 7 a.m. opportunities, there's going to be the 2-week opportunities with flu, whatever it is. So we organize ourselves from the inside out so that we can see things differently. So that we can see even something that the doctors call a flu, we might see it as an opportunity to learn patience. We might see it as a real divine appointment to rest, to slow down, to be able to really take the time to catch up with ourselves and God, and then to be able to go back out there and to do things maybe from a point of greater or expanded wisdom. I always thought that with my children. When they would have a fever, I knew there was some growth going on. I knew it. We just forget about that as adults. We would like to control and to manipulate whatever we can, take a pill, and avoid lots of things. I'm not sure why exactly, other than growth sometimes is messy. It's messy. Marianne says something about that too. I thought it was so cute. She said, the search for holiness, or that inner work, isn't pink and gauzy. It's tough and gritty. So we must know that intrinsically. We must know that. And yet, when we come together, I have found that community and being with people and exploring and coming to greater expanded understandings is the wind beneath my wings. It's what really is energizing. Have you found that too? That when we come to the understanding and we begin to see things differently, that we are not alone. Some of the greatest spiritual teachers on the planet right now are saying to their communities, if you thought holiness was sitting on a cushion and meditating, if you thought that's what it was, wrong. Get out there. Live life. My very dear friend, Victoria Etchemendy, a longtime Unity minister who doesn't have my last name, she's out of Westland, Oregon. She has been a good friend to Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, for many years now, has traveled in India with Arun. And she was able to create an interfaith gathering at a Baptist church in Portland, Oregon. I want you to just feel that. She knew he was willing to come visit that area one more time. She had brought him before. They always link up with schools, and Arun goes to schools and talks with the children. He's an amazing man. And she thought, well, if he could come again. Little did she know what would be going on in our country. Little did she know. But she thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if he would come to the church, the only church in that whole state where Martin Luther King Jr. spoke. And Arun was very intrigued by that, and he said yes to that. So Victoria went out and she found the Baptist minister who was well known in that area for the work that he was doing on the streets of Portland, et cetera, in Vancouver. And he said, yeah, let's work together. And she said, well, my part is I want to create it as an interfaith gathering because that's what she's done in that area for years. And that's a great thing to hold up now in our spiritual communities. In my news, out on the East Coast somewhere, the Jewish headstones in a cemetery were being pushed down right and left. The Muslim community came together in that area and raised money to help the Jewish community put those gravestones upright again. That's the power of faith communities working together, who are not daunted by fear, who will not roll over to fear, but like those early people that were followers of Jesus would rise up, even if it meant dying, and were willing to live out an expanded understanding of what it meant to be spiritually alive. That's what we're here for. That's our contract with the universe. Arun came to town. Victoria was there with the Amman, the different people that she had linked with for years and years. They were hoping maybe 300 people would show up. 900 people showed up. They were sitting in the aisles. And those leaders came to her afterwards and said, we have got to do more than we've been doing. And she knew that it was the time. Take it to the next level. My encouragement to all of us is to ask ourselves how to see things differently. What is ours to take to the next level? What is ours to take to the next level? To really go out of our way, out of our zones, out of our patterns, to reach beyond what we see with the physical eye, and rather to see things differently, to see that every place we go, everything we do, the fields are white unto harvest. They're blooming, they're bringing seed forth. And that it's there for us to reap those seed ideas and to reach to each other. There's another story that I found out of a book by Lynn Twist that I happen to love. And she was going into communities. She started the Hunger Project, so if you're aware of the Hunger Project, she's going into communities all over the world. This was years ago. And they decided to go into Bangladesh. And we know that to be an impoverished area. We know that to be an area that has chronically dealt with impoverishment. And they wanted to ask these questions. And so they brought together people, men and women. They wanted women to be there. It's rather like the Heifer Project now. When they go into communities across the world, if they can get the moms there, I'm sorry guys, but this is what they found out. The moms will really take these ideas and they will work with other people. They'll bring other people together. So if you're a dad today in the 21st century and you're not in a third world country, that means the men in our privileged societies could learn from this, how we come together and draw people in and bring people together, rather like my friend Victoria was doing in that Baptist church. So they found if they brought all these people together, they wanted to ask these questions. What would it be like if you were a country that were exporting finest quality goods? What would it be like if you knew yourself to be a country that was known for its art, music, poetry? What would it be like if you knew your country to be a place where you were a contributing member of the global community versus being the begging bowl of the global community? What does this questioning, How does it relate to us? How can we take something like that and apply it in our own lives? What are the views that we've held of our own self, our own communities, our own countries? How can we ask ourselves new questions? What would it be like if we were known for welcoming the new person in the neighborhood? What would it be like if we were known for organizing cleanup in our communities? What would it be like? Do you see that we can take this line of questioning that these leaders are using as they go into communities across the world, and we can apply this to ourselves, that we could see ourselves differently? It's my homework assignment, is to ask a new set of questions. So as Lynn Twist was there and she was asking these questions of all these leaders, all these people, they weren't leaders. There was a man, Zilu, from Sylhet, I don't know how to say that, who happened to go to this. And he became so inspired that he went back to Sylhet, and he thought, there's got to be a way, because the people in his little locale were about ready to abandon the locale, and they were going to leave, and they were going to find other places to live. And he went back and he gathered a few people together. And he said, what could we do here? And they said, well, we all need food. So what if we were able to go through all the countryside and we were able to get some land? And they talked to the government. They got some acreage. They started clearing. They started learning how to grow their own food. And in the middle of that, they discovered a pond and a stream that they didn't even know was there. And it was filled with fish. I just love that story. So they had food, and they were growing food, and they could make it, and they were coming together, and they were working together, and they were reclaiming their place. It's such a blueprint, really, for us. So that when I drive over here, all these years of driving over here, and I see that this community center building is now closed, it appears like it's closed when I come off the bridge and come over, and I see all this housing that I'm thinking, oh, these aren't the people making the biggest dollars in your community. And yet here is probably the great expression of many different cultures and many different views, and what would happen if we could see through the unitive consciousness. Would we see the value of all these people, all of us, connecting across the globe now? Would we see the value of unitive consciousness when we look at world religions, Native American views, which is that which we call God is everywhere present in creation, not separate from it, and that we honor our relationship with that which we call God in creation also? That would be seeing things differently on the planet, would it not? If we held that up in unitive consciousness, seeing that there is this greatness that we call God expressing through all, showing up in these spiritual, they're like the ones that have been the holders of wisdom for so many years, the Buddhist tradition, that which we call God is not a deity, is not separate from us, is not shaped and formed in the image and likeness after humans, but rather that would teach us that we are mindful always. Mindful always. Wow, that is a way to see things differently, isn't it? I had such a tough time driving over here being mindful. I hope I'm in the right group here. My racing thoughts. Wow, I think when I get in the car, when I'm driving in the freeway, they go about the speed of the car. I'm convinced that they speed up when I'm driving down the road. Oh, but I'm not walking here, so that's out. Traditional Christian, to know that which we call God as a personal Savior, personal, right there, connected to us, lifting us up, carrying us, that we are never alone, personal Savior. Whew. I wouldn't be the same person without that understanding that there was that infinite creative intelligence that knew me to the core and was there with me to the core. Last but not least, Taoist tradition, that energy is always found in its opposites, black and white and yin and yang. Ministries staffed with spiritual leaders, ministries not staffed with spiritual leaders, countries led by leaders that embrace, countries led by leaders that contract. This is the energy that we live in. This is the energy that we live in. And to see this differently through the eyes of science, Brian Schwimm teaching us the powers of the universe. Power zero is seamlessness. Seamlessness. Seamless. To see things differently, that all this diversity is our unity. So let's meditate on this, shall we? Because that's the source. To get out of the way, to go within, to do the work.